Watch what happens when we break open this solid shell of baked salt. That rush of steam is the byproduct of a cooking method that guarantees perfectly juicy fish every single time. Burying your dinner under 3 pounds of rock salt looks intimidating, but it's actually the most forgiving way to cook seafood. The salt forms a protective barrier, making it nearly impossible to overcook the meat. The biggest fear with this dish is that the fish will come out tasting like seawater. We are going to walk through the exact steps to build this crust, so your Branzino emerges perfectly seasoned, never salty. You only need 5 things to make this work: a whole Branzino, a box of coarse kosher salt, a few egg whites, a lemon, and some fresh herbs. Once you get comfortable with this process, you can easily replicate the quality of a high-end Mediterranean restaurant right in your own kitchen. Step 1 is preparing the fish. Use kitchen shears to snip off the sharp fins and loosely stuff the cavity with a few lemon slices and herb sprigs. Keep it light so the heat can circulate inside. But here is the most critical instruction. When you buy the fish, tell your fishmonger to gut it, but to absolutely leave the scales intact. This diagram shows why. The overlapping scales act as a natural armor, blocking the heavy salt crystals from touching the delicate flesh. Without scales, the salt rapidly draws out moisture, curing the fish instead of roasting it, leaving you with a dried-out, salty dinner. So the success of the entire recipe depends on making sure those scales stay on before you even leave the seafood counter. Next, we need to mix our mortar. Pour your coarse kosher salt into a large bowl and then whisk in the egg whites. Make sure you are using coarse salt. Fine table salt has grains that are small enough to slip through the gaps in the fish's natural defenses, ruining the flavor. Work the mixture with your hands until it feels like wet sand, holding its shape perfectly when you squeeze a handful without crumbling apart. Getting this damp, packable texture right is the only way to build a crust that won't collapse in the oven. Now we build the kiln. Line a baking sheet with parchment paper and spread out a bed of the salt mixture that's slightly larger than the Branzino. Lay the stuffed fish right in the center. Pile the rest of your salt mixture over the top. Use your hands to pack it tightly against the contours of the fish until it completely disappears. Trace around the base to create a tight seal. Look at this finished mound. There are absolutely no gaps, cracks, or exposed bits of fish. Here is what happens when that seal is tight. As the fish cooks, it releases moisture. Because the hardened shell is airtight, that moisture can't escape as steam, so it constantly cycles back into the flesh. If you leave even a tiny crack in your crust, that thermodynamic seal breaks, the steam vents out, and your fish will end up dry. Put the tray into an oven preheated to 400 degrees. Let it bake for about 20 minutes. You'll know you are close when the crust hardens and turns a pale ivory color. To be entirely sure it's done without breaking the seal, insert a probe thermometer directly through the crust into the thickest part of the fish. You want to hit an internal temperature between 125 and 130 degrees. Take the pan out of the oven and set a timer for exactly 5 minutes. Do not skip this resting period, and do not let it sit any longer. During those 5 minutes, the juices settle back into the meat, but if you wait beyond that, the cooling process causes the salt to slowly migrate from the crust directly into the flesh. Pulling the fish from the oven at the right temperature is only half the job. Pulling the fish from the salt exactly on time is what prevents a ruined, over-seasoned meal. Once the 5 minutes are up, take the heavy back edge of a chef's knife and tap firmly along the sides of the dome until it cracks with a clean snap. Because the salt is bound with egg whites, you can usually lift the entire top half of the shell off in one large piece. Take a pastry brush and sweep away any stray grains of salt lying around the edges. Now, gently peel the skin away from the tail up toward the head, discarding it to reveal the pure white fillet underneath. Use a spatula to carefully lift that top fillet onto a warm plate. Then, grab the tail and lift the entire central spine and head off in one piece, leaving the bottom fillet ready to serve. While cracking the dome at the dining table makes for great theater, it's safer for beginners to manage this entire dismantling process back in the kitchen where the mess is contained. Taking the time to properly clean and fillet the Branzino ensures your guests get the pure, sweet flavor without biting into any harsh shards of salt. What you are left with is a fillet that is glossy, incredibly tender, and completely saturated with its own natural moisture. To finish the dish, add a quick squeeze of fresh lemon juice and a generous drizzle of high-quality extra virgin olive oil. Serve it alongside some crispy roasted potatoes or a bright fennel and orange salad to cut through the richness. By understanding the mechanics of a salt crust, you turned an intimidating technique into a predictable, repeatable process. You now have a foolproof centerpiece for your next dinner party.